Now, what we're about to talk about is confronting, but it's important and it's positive. It can be very positive. Um, Over the years, when we've talked about sexual abuse by clergy, I've had a number of men call me, even in their 50s, who had never talked to anybody about being victims. And I've urged them, with some success, to go and talk to people and confront it and deal with it. And it's helped them. I know it's helped them. In the studio with me is a young woman who has been through it at the hands of her own father. Her father is serving time in jail. I'm not going to name her or her father or even a suburb. I don't want to go anywhere near identifying her. But the importance in her message is that, well, you can come out the other side, I suppose, in a sense. It can be confronted and dealt with. It's an horrendous list of charges. She was first assaulted by her father at age 3. That continued until age 13 or 14. It's not her real name. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah, thank you for coming in.
Hi.
And also Detective and Superintendent Rod Juning from the Victoria Police Sexual and Family Violence Division. Detective Superintendent, thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you, Neil.
So Sarah, how old are you now?
I'm 22 now.
How are you going?
Look, I'm doing a lot better than what I was. I'm a lot stronger. I still get help, I'm still going counselling. And yeah, like I have my days where I'm up and down, but I'm getting through it.
Age 3 it began, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and reading the detail of it, you remember a lot of it still,
I do.
even
Yes.
from age 3.
Yes, I do. Yes.
That must be very hard to live with still.
It is, yes. I still have memories of what happened. Yeah, it was very traumatizing, and yeah,
You also talk about it being so traumatic that you were suicidal for a
I
while.
was very suicidal.
From what age?
Probably when I hit my teens, I was just really fed up. I was actually in grade 6 and I was reading a Dolly magazine. And at that age, I actually still didn't, you know the wrong or right. My dad just turned around and said, every little girl does it to their daughters. And I just presumed, it was.
Was your job?
Yeah, so, and I read an article in the Dolly magazine and it was exactly like what I went through. And I was like, hang on, this is actually not right. And then I just let it go. I confronted my dad. I was like, this is wrong. He actually did threaten me a few times, if I told mum that he would kill my mum. And then a few years later, when I turned 14, I actually just had enough because my dad was actually, telling me to go a little bit further, and it was getting to that point that I was very suicidal. I just didn't want to be around and I was scared to tell my mum. But then I told her and she believed me from the first day I told her. So, yeah.
That's important. That must have been a matter of some relief because you would have thought at the back of your mind she mightn't believe me.
Yeah, well, I didn't think she would because, and I didn't want to really break up my family because everyone loved each other and I was scared to break it up. But, like my mum believed me from day one and it was just amazing to.
So from the outside to everybody, it was a happy family. Even from the inside, apart from what was happening to you.
Yes, that's correct. It can
Isn't it?
happen anywhere. And, we did things together. People thought we were a perfect family. And, yeah, and it happened in our own home.
What happened after you told your mum?
My mum asked me a few questions just to make sure I was telling the truth. And then I was like, I actually didn't want to tell my mum because my brother was having a deb. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to ruin his deb, but just kind of just blurted out. And then my mum ended up contacting the police during the week to find out what to do, but they couldn't do anything until I rang them up and told them that I wanted to press charges. And then my mum confronted my dad, and my dad obviously denied it and saying I was lying. And then my mum kicked him out straight away. And then it was a few years later, I wasn't really ready to contact the police. And then when I was 16, I decided to press charges on my dad.
And he admitted everything eventually.
He denied it a few times and he said I was lying, but then, yeah, he did eventually admit it.
And he's now in jail for a long time.
He is, yeah.
It must have made you, what, immensely proud of your mother.
Yes, that's correct, yeah. My mum's my inspiration.
How did you feel when your father was finally left the house? Were you still concerned that you'd broken
I
up?
was very concerned. I thought my brothers hated me, but they didn't. They were very loving, especially my mother. Yeah.
So it took some years before your father actually faced justice. What did you do during that time?
Oh my God, it was so hard. It was the hardest thing ever. It was very traumatizing. I went through depression. I was suicidal. I had anxiety. I didn't want to leave the house because I was scared he was going to come after me. So it was quite scary. But I had my mum. I went counselling and, I dealt with it. And yeah, so.
Such a massive breach of trust, isn't it? As I was reading through it,
Yeah.
I was thinking one of the most hurtful things must be this breach of trust. A person who is your dad, who you care about, you loved, is just abusing that trust.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, he betrayed it. Yeah, in flesh and blood.
Is that now the most difficult thing to deal with?
I have a lot of trust problems. I actually have a partner and I find it really hard, And yeah, it's always going to be on the back of my mind and yeah. So.
Why did you want to talk today? You're putting yourself through this exposure, this pain. It's hurting. Why did you want to talk?
Because it needs to be out there. People, men and women, need to know. Young children need to know that there's always going to be help out there, no matter what. Don't feel, afraid to tell someone because there will always be police out there to help you. And also, if someone doesn't believe you, someone else will believe you, no matter what. So I just want people out there to know that there's always going to be help, no matter what, and you'll always get through it.
Detective Superintendent, is there more reporting of this now? Are people more inclined to come forward?
We think very slightly, but not nearly enough.
Yeah.
So, statistically, it's awful when you look at sexual offending against children in generally, and we know that it occurs between probably the average of 1 in 5.
1 in 5 kids?
1 in 5 females, yep. A little bit higher for boys, probably up around the 1 in 8, 1 in 10, but we don't get to hear about it. And unless we can actually intervene and break that cycle, it's so hard. I suppose the other thing is that this is really, and what Sarah's talking about, is really the silent side of sexual offending. We get all, I suppose, very moralistic about, stranger rapes or kids getting dragged off the street or, a priest or somebody else who might offend against a child. But as soon as it comes to talking about this offending in a family home, nobody wants to talk about it. And that's what we're actually trying to bring out. And, Sarah being so brave to come forward today, talk about that and try and encourage others to break that cycle. And, you've already touched on it. You've spoken to men in their late 50s who have not disclosed, and the trauma and anxiety they go through their whole life. And the damage that's done, we see it repeatedly. It's that age, it's the 40s, the 30s where people disclose, but the damage is enormous.
And they've lived with it.
They have. So doing it at a younger age and as soon as possible is the key. And it's not just the disclosure from the victims themselves. It's looking at what's going on. There's quite often some indicators.
If we're talking about 20% of females being victims in this sense, what percentage of them are reporting?
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah, very few.
Mm. What are the indicators? What sort of indicators?
Look, childhood sexual abuse, the indicators can be, they can become withdrawn. They can actually retard in their development to a certain extent. There can be indicators like they become overly familiar with sexual terms or sexual activity, particularly for very young kids. They can become sexually abusive themselves and actually very promiscuous in that very early age, and usually before they should be, and sometimes before puberty. So it's those sort of indicators that we need to watch out for.
Sarah, looking back, were the signs from you, or were you hiding it from your mother? Your mother's obviously a caring person.
Yeah, my dad was very manipulative. My mum was a worker, my dad never worked, and I actually got sick quite a lot at school because my dad used to actually wake me up at about 2 a.m, and he'd made me perform oral sex, and then so my dad used every opportunity that he could possibly do, so he was very manipulative. And so
how do you now get on with life as you are, and you have been since you were 13, 14 or 16 when he went to the courts? How do you get on with life? What do you do? I mean, do you hate him? Do you turn a hatred towards him, or do you put that behind you? What do you do?
I definitely do hate him, because of what he's done. But I've put it behind me, and I'm moving on. It's my time now. It's my future, and that's the past, and this is my time to shine. So, yeah.
And you're working as well?
Yeah, I work in childcare. Yeah.
So you've got a bit of a campaign here, really, haven't you?
Yes, that's correct.
You're very brave to come and talk to us. Detective Superintendent, what do people do? Where do they go? Where do they ring? Who do they approach?
Yeah, look, there's a myriad of places they can go to, and there's sexual assault crisis lines in the first instance. There's centres against sexual assault located throughout the regions they can approach. Approach the police. Let us know. And even if it's just to discuss what the options might be, coming to police doesn't mean that you've committed to going down a path of going to court necessarily. It's about us becoming aware of it, talking through all of the options and the pathways that are open, putting the supports and, I suppose, protections around the victim, and moving forward from there.
Detective Superintendent Rod Juning from the Victoria Police Sexual and Family Violence Division, and I was going to say a victim, Sarah, but you're not now.
Yeah.
You're a crusader now.
That's
I wish you well. Thanks for coming in. I think you'll be okay, don't you?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes. Yeah.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil Mitchell.
Sarah.
Talking Melbourne.